People aren't labels. Labels aren't people. You're about to hear the conversation for yourself, but here's a quick spoiler. Homelessness isn't a disease, and it's hardly a choice. It's easy to make sweeping assumptions without ever having a personal connection. We wonder why the man at the street corner doesn't just pull himself up by his bootstraps, and we assume that could never be us. The purpose of this podcast is to listen and to share stories, yes. But more than that, it's to invite you to pause in our busy culture to really see the people around you, to make your own personal connections, and to recognize that there's always more than meets the eye. Before we dive in, I just want to say that despite my own embarrassing, stigmatic reflex, this isn't the interview with the homeless guy. It's the story of Paul Wheeler, a talented musician, a sacrificial father, a passionate friend, and a determined man. So, Paul. I connected with him via our local homeless shelter. The day we met, I checked in at the kitchen of the shelter and was told he was most likely in his van. I poked around the parking lot, peering into the cars there and thinking, this is normal, just peeking into people's vans for a guy I've never met before, it's fine. I didn't find him. After waiting a few minutes, here came Paul, sauntering towards my car. A bit of a hippie, he walked like his feet were grooving to his own inner music, a gas station soda in hand. We went to an office room in the shelter, sat down, and began to chat. Listen in.
My name is Paul Wheeler. I am from Rolla, Missouri. My background through, I guess, my early teen and adult life, I've been a professional guitarist for that length of time.
When did that start for you? When did you start playing?
I started playing piano when I was about 5. The only music that was ever listened in my household was 90s pop country if I was riding in the car with my mom. Saturday morning bluegrass tapes that my dad would record off the radio and listen to throughout the week, and an extensive collection of Creedence Clearwater Revival. That was the only music in my home.
This is your inspiration.
Right.
The foundation of your musical career.
Right. Yes. And it was the 90s, so you could go outside and go to your neighbor's house without your parents freaking out, as long as it wasn't dark out. So we were going to rent a movie or do something, and they had a Weird Al cassette in their conversion van. And I was like, this is the funniest music ever, and it totally rocks. What is this? So I immediately walked to Walmart and bought a Weird Al record, and first track on it was called Smells Like Nirvana. And I was like, man, this song rocks so hard. And I was the kid that would just like look at the sleeves of every album that he had. And I was reading the lyrics, and I noticed it said, hey, this is a parody of Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. And I was like, huh. So I ran downstairs and grabbed a dictionary and looked up what the word parody meant, because I was only about 11 years old, and I didn't know. Yeah. And so I was immediately just as quick going down to Walmart and buying a Nirvana record. And I was just like, I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Not that it was just Nirvana. It was just like, maybe it was, but I just heard this like amazing harmony and just so much power and emotion. I was like on the cusp of puberty, and I was just like, this is my music. These are my people. And I knew from about that age, I want to play guitar.
Just click.
I just had to be a part of that music more than just like jumping around in my bedroom. But that's how I got it started. I just wanted to play. And once I did it, I was obsessed. Yeah. I worked on a construction crew for my brother-in-law's company, picking up trash like all summer. Yeah. And I bought an N64 and a PV Raptor with a little crap fender. Yeah. I'd get off the bus, I'd make a bologna sandwich, and I'd play guitar for like 7 hours and not do any of my homework, and then go to school and get yelled at and called an idiot and make like F's, D's, and C's. So, like, my parents just thought, like, I'd lost my mind, you know, because they're like, yeah, you're really good at guitar, but we live in a town with an engineering school. Like, that's basically your future, or you're dead to us, you know?
Yeah.
And at least that's the way I took it at that age.
Did that affect your decisions, or was it...
Oh, it made me want to do it even more. It did. I was just like, I'm not going to be some square. You know? I'm going to rock. So, I had a friend named Sam who played. And we just fed off each other. Like, our musical taste, like, he'd show me this band, and I'd be like, well, I was reading Circus Magazine, and I heard this band. Let's walk down to Sam Goody and, like, get a record. Like, oh, my God, Weezer's the best thing ever. Dude, have you heard Collective Soul? Dude, have you heard Smashing Pumpkins? Like, oh, my God, like, all this music. It's around that time that I was reunited with my real dad, too, about 14. Oh, wow. And he was just a Weekend Warrior bar band drummer. And he thought he was, like, the hottest shit on the planet, you know? And I'm just like, yeah, but...
So you weren't doing it because you were like, I want to be just like my dad. He does this. This is what I want to do. It was separate. It was your own thing.
It was just a passion to, like, understand this language of music almost.
Yeah.
And,
so
because...
what was the dream? What were you heading towards?
I was a lost cause. I didn't know. Apathy kind of ruled most of my life, really. I just wanted to play real music. That was my only.
Yeah, not really a plan.
I didn't care about money. I thought money was the root of all evil. So
you just wanted to do what you loved.
Yeah. And I was invincible because I was like 13, 14, 15. By the time I was 16, my friend Sam and I got the bright idea to hitchhike to Oregon. And I spent a few years up there in the Northwest playing music, drinking a lot of beer, smoking a lot of weed, on the ocean. I mean, it was perfect for us. I mean, we go through Seattle and just couch surf, and it would rain for 6 months, and we'd just hang out in the basement and play rock and think we were cool because we were drinking beer.
Yeah.
And playing all these dive bars, and I'm like in the motherland, you know, Seattle, the Northwest, and I loved it. And then, yeah, it was good times. Sam and I had like a really dumb falling out because I was getting burnt out, and I was a lot of the argument was about a girl that we both liked too, that he ended up dating. So, like, at that age, it was a big deal, and the whole state of Oregon and Washington both was not big enough for the two of us. And so I took a Greyhound back to Rolla, and I got a job at, like, Sonic Drive-In, I think it was. I just worked minimum wage until I saved up, like, $400. I sold one of my guitars for like $400 plus like the $200 I had saved up, and I bought a ridiculously expensive plane ticket. And when I left Rolla, I think all I had was like $130, a bag of like Malt-O-Meal Honey Nut Cheerios, and a duffel bag and my acoustic guitar.
So you're broke.
I'm broke. I go to Jersey and I'm sleeping on some vegans' couches in West Orange.
Vegans' couches? Just they were vegan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like,
is that a phrase I'm not familiar with?
No, they were just vegan.
Okay.
Man, I just want a ham sandwich so bad, you know? Like, the story of Jersey is I get there and I don't know, like, I knew getting off the plane I was in a different place because Grandma with the tennis balls on her walker was like freaking just like trekking past me, and I'm just like, I walk slower than these people, you know? Yeah, I'm from the Midwest. We're gonna have chill out for a second, but it never did. But I play a lot of open mics and clubs like that, and one particular night I was going to a place called Tierney's in Montclair, and across the street on Valley Road was this place called Valley Road Guitars, and I went in and I was checking out all these guitars, but they were all these vintage like Martins that were like 30 grand and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, this is a museum to me. I'm going to just appreciate as I'm ringing up there's a picture of the guy at the register shaking hands with Paul McCartney, and I was just like, and it looked like late 80s, early 90s, like,
yeah.
I was just like, man, that's cool. When did you get to meet Paul McCartney? He was like, oh, yeah, I'm the sound engineer for SNL. And I was just like,
holy smokes.
I'm like, excuse me? I was like, what'd you just say? Like, and he asked me who I was, and I'm just, my name's Paul Wheeler. I'm a singer-songwriter from Missouri. I'm just here to play an open mic across the street. He's like, play one of your songs. So I played one of my songs, and he was just like, dude, you should come audition for the show, man. He's like, there's people who graduate Juilliard who, like, don't bend notes up because they're like, it's not proper technique, like the way it's phrased and it's written. And he's like, you just have, like, so much to your playing. And I was just like, well, thanks, man. I've really just been a big geek all my life. And so, yeah, I did audition. And I was, for 2 years, the youngest person to be in the SNL band.
Wow. So you're back in Rolla now.
I'm back. How did that happen? So, picked up a bad habit in New York and moved to Branson because my sister lived there, and I quit it cold turkey. I was shooting H between my toes, trying to be a career musician, and was killing it. I was in a signed band that toured everywhere. And if I wasn't in that band, I was hired to play in that band. And I just said, no, I don't have any real friends here. Everybody just likes me for all this money I'm making, and I'm young. I've never really had anything my whole life. So I just blew money on everything. And I still do. That's like my biggest weakness is it's like if things are good, I'm spending money. If things are bad, I'm still spending that money because F it,
Yeah.
And it's never on anything that destructive. It's just a beer that I can't afford because I just don't want to be alone, kind of thing. So went to Branson, cleaned out, met like some really, really solid people who put a lot of New York players to shame, just saying. Like, those cats jam, and it's all they do, and it's because it's fun. So music became a job in New York to me, and it became fun again in Branson. Yeah. And I was doing great there, but then aforementioned Sam took his own life. And this was right after, a few months after my stepdad, who I was close to, passed. And then, so I was like this emotional wreck. And then this girl I was with the whole time I was down there, and Branson's not that big a town, decided to sleep with one of my friends. And I was like, I'm going to get out of Branson for a while. So I moved to Kansas City and just loved it, but just never found like a strong footing. Ended up coming back to Rolla in about 2010. Met a girl, didn't work out, met another girl, had 2 kids with her. So I was pretty rooted here, just like very suddenly, and I built this life really up to, I'd always like tailored my life to like traveling and playing guitar and not thinking about tomorrow. And now it's like,
I've got 2 kids.
Yeah, now I've got 2 kids, and I became being a dad was like being a duck in water to me. I loved my kids. Like, I got a real job, you know, like I went through as many motions as quickly as possible that I could. And I was really in love with this chick, and I was just like, yeah, we could do this. I mean, like, we'll figure something out, you know. They're just kids. Just water them and feed them a few times a day. You know, like, they'll be fine. You know, we'll do it. I mean, I always had that sense of humor about it, but in the back of my mind, I was, like, genuinely terrified. And we did it a good job until we were doing pills, and at the end of the week, she'd be like, you want me to get a couple? You've worked hard all week. And I'm like, yeah, that would really help me go to sleep, you know, or something like that. And so I would think she'd be getting 2, and she'd gotten 20 each day of the week. Wow. It was either doing them or like flipping them for more money, because if she asked too much from me, I would get suspicious, you know, and that's just the way it was set up. I wasn't like pigeonholing her, but she was a stay-at-home mom because she wanted to be. And I was like, okay, you take care of the bills and I'll make the cheddar and I'll bathe the kids when I get home, and, you know, we'll figure it out, you know. And, but it was a happy house, you know, until it wasn't. And then all these things changed, and landlords are saying, hey, you haven't paid rent in 3 months. What's going on? And I'm like, that's funny, because I definitely thought we had, you know. So it just got worse and worse. We ended up being in a hotel, and it was early March, mid-March of last year, and she walks in the cold holding our 7-month-old daughter, our barefoot 5-year-old, and Asher, he was 3 at the time, with like some little crap hoodie, and walks maybe a quarter of a mile to where I was working. I'm just like, what in your... I was like, you gotta go now. Yeah. I packed her stuff and told her to kick rocks. And I tried, and she just ghosted us after that point. She hasn't talked to her children since, to my knowledge, at all. And I tried doing everything I could, keeping my head above water, you know, and then it was in June. I had lost my job where I was working because I couldn't afford childcare, so I was leaving the kids with my mom. You know, I was doing odd jobs. I was detailing cars. I was driving to the military base west of here and cleaning pools, you know, just whatever odd work I could do. I lost my place. I was sleeping in my van. I come back to get the kids one day, and my mom's just in tears. Kids are gone. She said she had called DFS on herself to help get childcare because she's old and just these kids are too much, which I get. So my kids get taken. And I'm like devastated. I've just left this woman I loved. I've just lost my 3 kids. DFS isn't telling me anything. I'm just like, okay. And by this point, I've been evicted. I've lost everything. Literally, the only thing I'd owned was my van and my work clothes. I ended up just going on a small tour. I went to Colorado. I went up to Wisconsin, met some friends there. Went to Nashville, stayed 3 weeks with an old drummer friend of mine from here who's killing it. My kids were here, though. I was like, I could have stayed in Nashville easy. But my kids were here. So I came back to like nothing, you know. Like I didn't have anyone here. I was embarrassed of my situation. Like for me to tell you this is like progress, because like I was just so I was living in shame, guilt, everything. I was damned if I did, damned if I didn't, you know. And I've just been like living out of my van, and then it starts getting super cold, and I didn't have any future. I was like, you know, I'm going to DFS every week, visiting my kids, going through the hoops, pissing in a cup every week, you know, like, and like, all these caseworkers are like, oh my God, you're like the only single dad we've ever met, and like, you're homeless, and like, you're still here for your kids every time we tell you to be. And I'm just like, and, you know, like, okay, I'm one of a kind, I guess. When does that, what do I got to do to get these kids back? You know, like, you keep avoiding that.
Yeah.
Well, you seem really depressed. You need to see a therapist. Make sure you're like mentally prepared to have your kids back. And I'm like, don't you realize I'm depressed because I don't have my kids? Don't you realize that's why I'm doing all of this stuff? And you realize that's why I'm not just like blowing what money I have on hotels and things like that.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I've got a $3,000 laptop in my van, and I'm eating beanie weenies like in the cold. You know, like, so I ended up finding out about the mission. It was while I was there, I finally got hope. And some old friends of mine had started reaching out to me, making sure things were okay. And it was just somebody asking me, like, how I was doing. And I was just like, not good. And they're like, well, try this out. Here's these resources. And I came to the mission, and I just was like beside myself just how kind everyone was. The fact that I could take a hot shower when I wanted, and I wasn't paying like $13 a shower at the truck stop anymore. That was great. 2 hot meals a day, all about it. As I stayed here, you know, I just saw some people who were like way too content to be here. And I'm like, I get that. You know, like, who wants to like work hard and do things, you know? Maybe a guy wanted his kids back, you know? So I was like, I gotta come up with something. And I just had this thought in the back of my mind. I was like, I'd always thought about giving lessons, and I'd actually thought of the name Altruistic Guitar Method years ago, just as when I was jamming with people in Branson, you know, it was just like, these people play to the song. You know, it was just like, what an altruistic
that's what you
style of playing, you know, that's what I want to teach. It's like, you can go on YouTube and learn scales.
Sure. So you started renting space here. Lessons.
And that was like, I thought maybe, I literally just going to sleep one day, I was like, you know, they have all this space up in the church. Marie's pretty cool. Maybe I could like, you know, just throw her some money each month and, you know, at least have something, you know. And turns out, you know, that's not the way life works. So I came up and talked to her, and as sweet as Marie is, she's like, well, I don't really know you. You're just some homeless guy downstairs. And that's not how Marie is at all. Like, she started the mission, but, you know, like, you gotta build a trust, you know. And she's like, well, and I think she said it as a deterrent, but she's like, I answer to a board, you know. She threw that out there, and I was like, if you write a really nice business proposal, you know, I'll present it to him, and then maybe, you know, we'll see. You know, I was getting a lot of that, and I was like, okay. Yeah, okay. And as soon as I left, I was like, how do I write a business proposal? So I go to the library the next day, and I literally Google business proposal for guitar lessons. And it was just like, bing. I was like, well, that was easy, but I basically just took the format, went with it. But it helped me, because once I started writing my ideas down on paper like that, and especially when I got to like a project outline, I give it to her. She has a business or board meeting the next day. I'm all excited. I'm just like waiting by the phone, basically. And she's like, they really liked it, but our insurance guy wants you to have insurance, small business insurance. And I'm just like, okay. So I go and talk to my friend Tammy up the street at the bank, and I'm like, hey, how do I do this and this? And I just started doing all these things, and I got a full-time job selling cell phones here in town. in that time too. So I've just been so busy, you know, and hopefully the guitar money, my end game is for the guitar money to like take over the cell phone selling money and be able to do that full time. But right now I'm just putting my dollars away and trying to finance a house so I can get my kids back later this year. It's cool.
I hope you enjoyed Paul's story, along with the other incredible storytellers this season. Thank you for getting to know these individuals with me. Please continue to follow along on social media and our website where you can submit your own story. Head to youneverasked.org/share your story and stay tuned for Season 2 announcements coming soon. Personally, these were the stories from my own hometown. I was shocked to discover how little I knew about the people in my community. Relatives, friends, strangers. So who will you meet? Start by knocking on your neighbor's door. Thanks for listening to Season 1 of You Never Asked.